So thank you very much. And my first question is, how is digitalization affecting traditional employment relations theory and practice?
So I'd say when you think about employment relations theory and how it should change, you could say it should already have been changing to address these shifts in work employment that have happened for a long time. And so I talk about three major effects, so I can describe three. One is that employment relations researchers need to think more about how employment relations is structured within a networked firm or a vertically disintegrated firm. I think still we are thinking about employment relationships as if they're happening within one company, but increasingly they cross organizational boundaries. And that raises a whole range of different questions around how institutions, laws, and collective bargaining agreements are really regulating jobs across those boundaries. And if you're doing comparative employment relations research, you need to understand different ways in which national institutions or collective bargaining systems might be better adapted or adapting in a more flexible way to actually regulate work and represent workers across these different kinds of employment contracts. A second implication, I think, is that we need to study continuity in digitalization and in technological change rather than think of it as something brand new. So because I study trade unions in this ICT sector, they're often not having to invent new tools, but they readjust and they adapt tools that they've used in these past waves of change to new things like artificial intelligence and algorithmic management. So to give one example, in Germany, Deutsche Telekom, major telecom firm, they have long used their codetermination rights on performance control, which allows them to really have a lot of say in how management takes the technologies and uses it to monitor workers, and really puts limits on how it's used in the workplace. And they're adjusting those tools now to put limits on how algorithms are used to monitor workers, to set up parity committees, to oversee what the company's doing and make sure it's more fair. And they're also going to figure out new ways to regulate work in the home and apply those codetermination rights as more workers are now in home working arrangements and no longer in offices.
Thank you. And my second question is, could you briefly explain your exit, voice, and solidarity framework for a social regulation in the digital economy?
Yes, so my framework comes from a book that is just coming out, and it's based on my research over many years. So I think looking at what I described as that first digital revolution and the changes that happened with where companies were increasingly restructuring jobs through outsourcing, performance management, and downsizing, and outsourcing, offshoring. Right? So the framework is trying to understand through looking at 10 different telecom firms in different countries, under what conditions do you see unions having more success in regulating, responding to those changing employer strategies, and really containing precarity or reducing precarity in these different telecommunications jobs. So my framework focuses on these three conditions. The first is constraints on employer exit from encompassing labor market regulations. So that includes things like minimum wages, minimum conditions, but also sectoral collective bargaining agreements. And the second condition is supports for collective worker voice in management decisions. So that's things like codetermination rights, but also the ability of workers to mobilize around certain demands. So to actually have more equal bargaining power with employers and use their voice to substantively improve working conditions. And then the third is strategies of inclusive labor solidarity. So that's a sort of glue that allows workers to actually organize across, as I was describing before, these vertically disintegrated firms, different kinds of workplaces and really establish or maintain those encompassing regulations. So employers often try to play different groups of workers against each other through exit, saying, if you don't agree to our demands, we're going to move these jobs to another workplace, to another country, another group of workers. And workers respond most effectively when they can build solidarity and use the bargaining power of the stronger workers to support the weaker workers in making demands for more equity and reduced precarity.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pleasure to hear those topics from you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Thank you.